Well, it was even worse because Cruz tried to use it again as Scientology propaganda. The whole tour that he should have spent promoting the film, instead he was doing wild stunts, such a famous twist, Frio dust and the like, leaping, doing weird stuff. He constantly dragged his new wife everywhere, talking continuously about Scientology and his new wife instead of the movie he was supposed to promote. He did it purposely, which is just completely unreal. Here again, when he got very angry, and since then he refuses to cooperate in any way with Tom Cruise and other Scientologists because he is really fed up. And that's quite interesting because he has always had a tendency to shoot things that are a bit about imagination, fantasy, sci-fi, alien stories. Yes, it's an alien and so on, but as I said, in a Scientological sense, they don't want a good alien. They want a war of the worlds. It's what fits their narrative. Here you see a rather bizarre story, and many of these things just make noise somewhere, maybe in some boulevard. Then you learn something from renegades. Then a lot from high adherents of Scientology who have left. Gradually, like the fragments, they come together, and interestingly, at that time, during the War of the Worlds, it was discussed that it was linked to Scientology, and that it was tossed around like a costume, but with the Minority Report, it wasn't quite so famous. I think this is another example of how Scientology doesn't know how to communicate with the public at all. They just do it because of the Miscavige thing, because they're fanatics. They just believe absolutely their doctrine instead of thinking about it. Let's do it a little differently, not so violently, not in such a way that we immediately tell everyone to immediately stop taking their pills, whatever problems you have, psychiatric and so on. Yes, that is simply a problem, and today Scientology at least. Outside posters don't claim things like you have asthma, we will cure it immediately with Dianetics. But in the Dianetic materials it is, and in fact still at the highest levels, Scientologists believe chemotherapy is a big problem. Actually, you shouldn't go for chemotherapy, but you have to go for auditing. Yes, it will cure you of cancer, yes, and so on, but here it is simply a question of to what extent it permeates all those structures, but at least they don't do it that much on the outside. Yes, when you enter Scientology, you don't have to stop seeing a doctor. But at the higher levels, the pressure is noticeably higher, especially in certain specific areas, but it does not only apply to psychiatry. It's similar to my experience in an African village among people who simply can't read and write properly, or basics, and they explain to me that if I have any disease, I need to go to their priest and he will bless me or make a miracle. That's all I need to heal, and that if it doesn't work, I lacked faith. That's what Scientologists would say too. Yes, if the auditing didn't cure your cancer, even if you're already at the OT stages and in fact you're already an operating thetan, then you did something wrong. Yep, it's just the typical esoteric hodgepodge a bit to say that you can actually cure everything with simple alternative methods. I'm not saying they can't exist, but it's always suspicious when someone says, I have the only method which is so great, plus my method works for all the diseases. Yes, we should be a little more vigilant, but as I said, Scientologists have backed down a bit on this public narrative. Again, Scientologists don't want to fully admit that there has been some change in procedures, but I will give another example for everyone. This is how they actually shifted their stance precisely on the question of religion. Yes, we mentioned that earlier OT8 and others as degrees included information such as Jesus was a pedophile or someone admitting that he was the Antichrist and just nonsense. Yes, anyway, basically their teachings are that in those implanting clearing stations, they implant ideas of Christian and other religious ideas into us. So it's actually pure anti-Christian religion or anti-almost all religions, but I think that Miscavige is part of it, partly for their public image, but I think partly maybe for some other reasons. Think about it yourself, just to dull the aspects of these teachings today, as well as in previous brochures. What I've seen is presented by normal Scientologists, that they personally accept maybe the Buddha was not an imposter, but they accept him. Yes, he may have actually come up with some self-clearing methods. Yes, but that's the question. How much of this is the real faith of Scientologists and how much they just tell the public? Because at the higher levels, it's probably not completely valid anymore, but don't take my word for it. It could be.